Hi, this is Simon Obstell and welcome to another tutorial for Apple Motion. And today I'm going to show you how to create this 3D calligraphic effect. So it's quite an intriguing look and there are some interesting techniques involved in making it. And of course you can use this technique with any shape that you care to come up with. So let's take a look. Okay, project setup, 1920 1080, 24 frames a second, duration of 10 seconds. So the first thing I want to do is grab the circle tool, holding down the Shift and Option key. I'm going to drag out a circle like that. I'm going to center it up, come over here. Let's reduce the fill, so we've got a very faint fill opacity, but we're going to turn that off for the time being. We're going to turn on outline and we're going to switch to airbrush. Let's have a width of 38 and a spacing of 640. And it's a quick and easy way of getting this little arrangement of dots. And I'm just going to come over and rotate that -6 degrees like this. Okay, so this is going to be our guide for building our shape. So let's now come down and select the Bezier tool. So we're going to use these dots as the guide for drawing out our curvy calligraphic shape. So I'm going to click here and then I'm going to click and drag there. Just a short handle for each one. We're going to come back and finesse these handles later on, but we can do this very quickly. Just a quick click and drag on each of those points like this, and then like that. Maybe do a little bit of a curve like that. Okay, and then enter to close it up. So we don't want any fill for this, and we're going to come back and sort out the outline later on. So I'm going to just come back to my guide circle, turn off the outline and turn back on the fill. So I'm going to reselect my Bezier shape. I'm going to come down to Edit Points. And as I say, we're going to just adjust each of these handles. We're going to just flip it over like that. And maybe just adjust this one. Just something like this. Just flip all these handles over like so. Maybe just make it a bit of adjustment as you go. To taste, just repositioning that along the circle. Come down here, switch that one over like this, make sort of larger loops in the middle, I think, like that. You can always adjust these later on again, just flipping over the handles in each case. Pretty quick and easy to do. This last one here, flip that over like this. Again, just sort of adjust it so it more or less fits the circle. We don't want to be sort of too pedantic about this. It's got to have a sort of organic flow to it, but we can kind of come in and adjust those handles if we think those loops look a bit awkward. Okay, I think that's good enough. Let's turn off the guide, so we're done with that now. And let's address ourselves to how this circle is going to look. Just going to turn off the overlays. So for this one, again, we want airbrush. And I've got a width of 10 pixels there. That's good. So I'm going to come over to the stroke, and we don't want to use the brush color. We want to use color over stroke. And in this case, I'm just going to select from the gradient menu this gradient that I've made, and I'm going to show you what the colors are. So it's this color at either end, so something like that. And in the middle, we've got this slightly more sort of earthy, greeny kind of look. And as I say, the same color at either end, like that. Because what we're going to do is we're going to have color repetitions. So I'm going to have 8 repetitions of that. And you can see it gives us a nice effect overall. So that's our basic effect. And now to this group, I'm going to add filters and stylize and extrude. So let's have an angle of 180. Let's have a distance of 1. And let's have a back size of 0.8. So now we've got our shape filled in, looking pretty good. Let's actually now bring in a background. So I'm going to import from the assets folder this thing called curved cyc. And let's bring that in. Let's drag that out into a group at the back there. And let's come to the 3D object, custom, set the scale to 400. And then let's just adjust that Y position -480. So it just gives us a bit of an environment to play with. And I'm also going to give it some color. So color and tint. And let's just go with something like this. Sort of dark and desaturated, so that it offsets the color of our main calligraphy. Okay, so then what I'm going to do, I think, is to add a camera. So I'll add object camera, switch to 3D. I'm going to come over to properties, and we want to set up a bit of a rotation here. So the Y rotation, add parameter behavior, ramp. I'm going to have a start value of -45 and an end value of -1. And you can see the problem we have now. It looks like we've got a flat plane rather than a 3D type of object. So we can fix that by linking the extrusion to the camera rotation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the distance, and I'm going to add parameter behavior and link. I'm going to grab the camera as the source object. For the source parameter, I'm going to come to properties, transform, rotation, and Y. And I'll set the scale to -15. And now, if we run it, that's looking much better. It does look as though we're actually looking at a 3D object, even though, of course, we aren't. It's still actually a 2D filter, but we've created that interesting 3D illusion. So I'm just going to come back to my camera ramp. Let's have an end offset of 50 frames, and let's turn up the curvature. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to get this shape to right on. So I'm going to select my Bezier. I'm going to come to behaviors and shape and right on. I'm going to come to frame 150. With the right on selected, I'm going to come to mark and mark out. And I'm going to set the speed to ease both. So now we're getting this nice draw on like this, and it sort of slows down towards the end. Okay, so then I want to add some lights, and this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So I'm going to add a light. I'm going to move this one to roughly, I think, 250 on Z, and maybe just increase its intensity a little bit like that. Let's go for maybe something like 200 for that. And then I'm going to duplicate that, right-click, duplicate, and I want to light up my background a bit. So I'm going to go for maybe something like -500 for that. And maybe just move it up a little bit. And let's increase the intensity a bit. Actually, what I'll do is I'll move my cyc forward. So let's do that. If I move my cyc forward, we're getting a little bit of illumination there. So let's go for 2000 on the cyc like that. Okay, so that's the basic lighting. But what I also want to do is I want to have a light that follows the right on. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to make a dummy object that we can link to. So I'm going to grab the circle tool, probably down here in my cyc group, that's fine. So just draw out a small circle like that, center it up. So what I want to do is I want to come to behaviors, basic motion and motion path. I want to switch to geometry, and I want to use my Bezier shape as the source. And as before, I want to switch the speed to ease both. And let's also come to frame 150. And with that motion path selected, let's come to mark and mark out. So now you'll see that my little circle is following along with that right on. And then I can link a new light to that. So let's make a new light, object light. Let's come to behaviors and motion tracking and match move. And let's select the circle as the source. And we can turn off that circle. So now we're getting that movement of the light, which is actually really rather nice. And you can see how it's following along. But the reason we couldn't actually link it directly to the Bezier is that we need the light to be in front. If we'd linked it, it would be at 0, and it wouldn't have that effect of lighting up our shape. So that's why we needed to do that. I just want to move this group up a bit. Let's move it up on Y, I don't know, something like 100. And let's maybe just reduce its scale down to about 90. I think that's a nicer framing. I think I prefer this, and that light doesn't end up too close to the floor and burning it out. So the final thing I'm going to do is, with this group selected, I'm going to come to filters and sharpen and unsharp mask. And I'm going to set the radius all the way up to 32. I'm just going to zoom in so you can see what's happening here. And what's rather interesting about this is we're getting that sort of ambient occlusion effect, as though we're getting shadows in the folds. Obviously that's too much, but we can turn the amount down to around 0.5. And I think that really helps to sell the sort of 3D quality of that. And I think that looks quite nice. Obviously you can choose any color you want for this Bezier shape. You know, supposing you didn't like this, you wanted to go absolutely wild, like you could have rainbow or something. What you do need to do, as I say, is you always need to have a sort of a loop. So I would move this over. I would take that red from that end, hold down the Option key, drag it all the way over here, click on this button here just to even up the tags. Maybe that's too many repetitions for this. Let's go down to about 5 for that. But there you go, we've got this really rather gross colour, but you know, you might like that. Not really my cup of tea. And I'm going to go back to this one here. So, hope that's been interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.